Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new. And welcome to this horror franchise movie review video as part of my current April 2024 series, where I'm taking a look at the entire Evil Dead franchise. I reviewed the first movie a couple days ago. That's up on my channel if you want to check it out. The OG from 1981. Today, we're going to go ahead and take a look at its sequel, which is Evil Dead 2 from 1987, which just like the first one I showed, I have on this two pack here of the first two movies. This two pack Blu-ray set. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into Evil Dead 2. So Evil Dead 2, also known in publicity materials as Evil Dead, Dead by Dawn, is a 1987 American comedy horror film directed by Sam Raimi, who co-wrote it with Scott Spiegel. The second installment in the Evil Dead film series, it is considered both a remake and a sequel or requel to Evil Dead from 1981. It stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, who vacations with his girlfriend to a remote cabin in the woods. He discovers an audio tape of recitations from a book of ancient texts, and when the recording is played, it unleashes a number of demons which possess and torment him. So that's kind of the setup and the premise. So Ash Williams and his girlfriend Linda take a romantic vacation to a seemingly abandoned cabin in the woods. While in the cabin, Ash plays a tape of archaeologist Raymond Noby, the cabin's previous inhabitant, reciting passages from the Book of the Dead, Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which he has discovered during an archaeological dig. The recorded incantation unleashes an evil force, also known as the Kandarian demon, that kills and later possesses Linda, turning her into a deadite. Ash is then forced to decapitate her with a shovel and bury her in a shallow grave near the cabin. At dawn, the evil force throws Ash through the woods. He briefly becomes possessed by the demon, but when day breaks, he is inexplicably returned to normal. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise for Evil Dead 2 from 1987. As far as the cast goes, we have Bruce Campbell, of course, as Ash Williams, Sarah Berry as Annie Nobby, Dan Hicks as Jay, Cassie Wesley as Bobby Joe, and Denise Bixler as Linda. So yeah, this is an interesting film. Very different than the first one. It kind of reminds me of the first two Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, if I'm being honest. It kind of follows that same pattern where the first one was very grounded in reality, very scary. And the second one they went much more with a comedic humor kind of tone, almost over the top. And it's very similar to this situation. The first Evil Dead was very low budget, made on a shoestring, but very well done by a first time director. Um, and very grounded in reality to make it scarier. Where Evil Dead 2, you can tell, is a bigger budget, better effects, but at the same time, they definitely went with a totally different tone and more of a comedic one, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 did. So let's just go ahead and get into my review for Evil Dead 2. Um, Starting with the pros or the things I liked about Evil Dead 2, the character of Ash has to be the first thing that stands out. It's This is the Ash that we've come to know and love, much more than the first movie, where he was basically, like I said during that review, he's like the last character that survived, at least on screen. Apparently, in interviews, he didn't survive. They're basically saying he was dead when the evil came through the woods, and he had that look on his face, like as it approached him right before the fading black to the credits. Um, but he wasn't Ash yet. He was kind of a bumbling, nerdy, big brother boyfriend, the last survivor of this group of teens or 20 somethings. Where in this movie, this is Ash in its full glory, basically. Much more of the fun, slapsticky kind of characters with one liners, sort of larger than life and over the top. And the biggest compliment I can give is that Bruce Campbell just embraced it to the utmost, and he plays this character so well that I can't really imagine anybody else doing it. So yeah, Bruce Campbell definitely. Both Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell their acting and directing, respectively, chops have increased tenfold in this movie from the first one. I didn't even think it was that bad in the first one, especially Raimi's directing. But you can tell in this one they've been around the block a few more times. And Bruce Campbell definitely has, and I just love watching him in this movie with his over-the-top performance in this character. As I said, there's clearly a bigger budget with this movie. I think the first movie was about 375,000. This is 3.5 million, so it's still not like a large Hollywood budget, but certainly compared to the first movie, it's a larger budget. And you can tell, and where it really shines through the most is with the practical gore and makeup effects in this movie, especially the makeup effects. I mean, they were pretty chintzy in the first movie. Like drawing on people and using makeup and stuff, but not really like prosthetics, not really like gore effects, like the more advanced technology kind of makeup effects, I guess. And obviously, this was shot like 6 or 7 years later, too, so that helps as well. But they just had a bigger budget, and I thought that's where it really shined, the practical gore and makeup effects throughout the movie. I thought it much more improved over the first movie. Definitely more blood and gore as well, I would say, in this movie. But again, it's kind of that over the top, not like somebody in real life that severs an arm. It's more like almost like if the Looney Tune character had severed an arm or something. It's very over the top, kind of blood and gore. So there's definitely a lot of blood here, but it's kind of the wacky blood, if that makes sense, the over the top stuff. They still have the evil moving. Sorry, let me restart that. They still have this evil in the woods that moves throughout the woods and throughout the cabin and stuff with the camera shots and the panning, the camera movement that I really like and really enjoyed in the first movie. I really enjoy it here as well. Um, that's back again. And it looks just as good and in some ways maybe even better than the first movie. So I'm glad they stuck with that. They change up the tone, obviously, from the first movie quite a bit, where this movie is much more of a fun, silly, and just a good time to put on with your friends kind of horror movie. Where the first movie, not that you couldn't watch it with your friends, but it was definitely more unsettling, unnerving. This is just a good time kind of comedy movie almost. It has horror elements to it, or a horror premise, I guess is a better way to say it. So I give them credit though for changing up the tone because it would have been easy to just try to do what they did in the first movie. And while I'll get into that in my cons where they did a little too much of that in some other areas, they didn't when it comes to the tone. And then finally, I mentioned it before, but the directing of Sam Raimi is at the top of his game in this movie. Again, I didn't think it was terrible in the first movie. I thought it was fine, especially for a first-time director. But in this movie, man, he just directs the hell out of this movie. This movie's got a very tight pacing to it, a very good structure to it, other than what I'm going to get into with my cons with some other things. But the structure and the pacing of this movie, it's about 85 minutes, so it's the perfect pacing, the perfect timed horror movie from the 80s. So yeah, the directing by Sam Raimi, as well as the other technical aspects, are really good in this movie, with few exceptions. So those are my pros for Evil Dead 2 from 1987. Getting into my cons, I wasn't the biggest one I have is I wasn't really thrilled at the fact that they basically rehashed the beat for beat the same story of the first movie with slight variations, but it starts the same way. Only this time Ash is going with just his girlfriend instead of his sister and other two friends in a car to this cabin on this supposedly romantic getaway, which is kind of funny. It has a lot of the same unfolding events, having to decapitate his girlfriend, which happens early in this movie. And it has the exact same setting, this cabin in the woods. It looks exactly the same. And I'm not sure if they shot the exact same cabin in that exact same woods, but it just all felt very repetitive to me. And it just wasn't, as a result, it wasn't as engaging as those things were in the first movie. And I thought they could have done, if you're going to change the tone, I thought they could have changed the story a bit too, with while still having the essence of what they were going for with the Necronomicon. And I wish this movie would have changed up the story and how it falls a little bit more than it did. So that was a big disappointment for me. I didn't find the movie nearly as scary or horror driven as the original, which is on purpose. I mean, as I said, when you read it, it's not even a horror comedy. They describe it as a 1987 American comedy horror film. So horror is not even the first word there. So you kind of know what you're getting. Um, there's a few jump scares here and there where one of the either possessed people or the monsters, if you will, jump out at somebody through a window or something. But other than that, there's not a lot of horror here, in my opinion. Much more slapsticky, much more comedy, um, over the top and comedic with a jump scare here or there. Just doesn't have that same unsettling feeling or that feeling of being grounded in reality to a certain extent that the first one had. And part of the reason the first one had that is because of the low budget. But they did so much with it, and in this movie they had more of a budget, but it's definitely not grounded in reality. So that therefore it's not scary in that regard either. Some of the effects I don't think dated as well. They look kind of ridiculous aside from the makeup and gore effects that I mentioned earlier. Um, like the portal that you see towards the end, the live tree that comes and takes away a character. Um, there's just some of it is just a little bit. There's when there's like lightning in the sky and like storm clouds and things like that. It's very dated. I didn't think those effects held up as that well at all. Um, it's a bit much, and again, it's hard to take it seriously. You know, the first movie, not that you thought it was a documentary or anything, but you could take it more seriously based on how things went down. In this movie, they're not asking you to take it seriously, so that helps, but it's just hard to be scared or have any sort of engagement as much as the first movie anyway. Um, when it's not grounded in reality at all, hard to take it seriously. None of the other characters other than Ash in this movie are all that interesting or engaging. They really weren't in the first movie either. But right down to the redneck couple that we get in this movie, um, Bobby Joe and not Jake. He's the other. I think I missed the was it? I think I missed the casting of the other person, but yeah, I don't know. They just didn't do anything for me. They're just kind of there as fodder, it feels like. And then finally, this is more of a warning, but if you haven't seen this series before, Evil Dead 2 sounds like a sequel to the first movie, but if you can't tell, it's really not a sequel. It's more of a requel, a reimagining, a reboot, a remake, whatever you want to call it, of the first movie. They basically take the first movie, the essence of it, the story and everything, change the tone, change some of the characters, and make it much more comedic and a lot less horror. That's basically the big difference here. But it is a reimagining of the first movie, basically a remake. So keep that in mind when you're watching these for the first time, if you haven't seen them before. So I kind of have mixed feelings about this movie. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's very well directed. I think Bruce Campbell is great as Ash. It's a lot of fun to watch, and if I'm in the right mood, I can definitely see putting this on when I'm more in the horror comedy kind of mood, like with other movies like Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead, and my other horror comedies, Return of the Living Dead. Although I put Return of the Living Dead from '85 on before this one, but you get my point. If I want horror, I want to be scared. I'm not going to put on Evil Dead 2. I'm going to put on the Evil Dead. But if I want to just have a good time and laugh and just watch some over the top effects and things from the 80s, then I'll watch Evil Dead 2. So it is watchable in that regard. So 7.5 out of 10 for Evil Dead 2 from 1987. Go ahead and comment down below. I do know this is a lot of people's favorite. They actually prefer this over the original, and hey, to each their own. I definitely am not one of those people. That's not to say that I hate this movie or I don't like it. I do like it, but it's very different. I kind of like it in the same way that I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 a bit better, I think, than this sequel. But anyway, with that being said, please like this video, hit the little notification bell down below, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content, including the rest of this series and my reviews for it, as well as my ranking of this franchise. I'll also be throwing in a sixth video. I'm going to watch the Deadites documentary on Shudder that I have saved there. Probably between the 25th and 30th, after I review the last movie for The Evil Dead, but before I do my ranking of the 5 movies, I'm going to have a little review on that Deadite documentary that's on Shudder. I think it's Hail to the Deadites or something, so that'll be interesting. But I thought I'd throw it in since I just saw it the other day and I'm doing the series right now. So, with that being said, I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Go ahead and comment down below your thoughts on Evil Dead 2. And as always, stay scared. Bye.